Nigel Farage built his entire political brand on one simple, seductive promise that he was different, not like the others, not polished, not managed, not fake. He was the pint-holding, straight-talking outsider who would shake the rotten establishment to its core. Millions believed him, millions voted for him, and for a brief, dazzling moment in 2025, it looked like he might actually pull it off. Reform UK was topping the polls, overtaking Labour in membership numbers, and the talk of Westminster was no longer whether Farage could win, but by how much. Fast forward to the spring of 2026, and the picture looks dramatically different. Reform UK is in crisis, the scandals are piling up, the internal contradictions are bursting into public view, and the man who promised to clean up British politics is spending more time cleaning up his own mess. Let us start with what became one of the most bizarre stories in recent British political history, the cameo scandal. While Farage was supposed to be holding the government to account from his seat in Parliament, he was quietly making a small fortune recording personalised birthday and wedding videos for fans on the Cameo platform. Not a handful of videos, not a few dozen as a side hobby. We are talking about approximately 2,000 videos in the space of 12 months, earning him over £140,000. Meanwhile, according to LBC, Farage had spoken in Parliament just 22 times during that same period. To put that in perspective, he appeared on Cameo 90 times more often than he spoke on the floor of the House of Commons. The man who positioned himself as the voice of the forgotten working man was, it turns out, far more interested in recording novelty messages than actually doing the job he was elected to do. Then came The Guardian's bombshell investigation. Journalists reviewed those thousands of Cameo videos and found that Farage had repeated extremist slogans, appeared to support a convicted far-right rioter, referenced anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, and had even endorsed an event connected to a Canadian neo-Nazi group called Diagolon. His spokesperson's response was remarkable in its casualness, acknowledging that at that scale, the occasional mistake can occur. Let that sink in. The leader of the most popular party in Britain, by some polling measures, was essentially arguing that endorsing neo-Nazi adjacent events was just a slip of the keyboard. Farage promptly paused his Cameo account, with the party claiming it was for security reasons. His critics called it damage limitation. Make of that what you will. But the Cameo fiasco is just one thread in a much larger unravelling. Take the treasurer of Reform UK, Nick Candy, the property billionaire who donated hundreds of thousands of pounds to the party and was announced with great fanfare as part of Farage's inner circle. In February 2026, it emerged that Candy's name had appeared in the Epstein files. The Epstein files, the same documents that have destroyed reputations across the Atlantic. Now, appearing in those files is not automatically proof of wrongdoing, and that must be stated clearly, but the optics for a party that campaigns heavily on moral clarity and cultural restoration are, at the very least, uncomfortable. Farage's defense was swift and characteristically blunt. He said Candy never had anything to do with Epstein. Whether that explanation satisfies voters is another matter. Then there is the relentless parade of candidate scandals. According to polling expert Mark Pack, Reform has lost at least 67 candidates since May 2025 due to scandal. Not a handful, 67. In just one recent week alone, one Reform candidate was photographed giving a Nazi salute, while another candidate set to stand in a 2028 mayoral election compared a Jewish community group to Islamists on horseback. And then there is Chris Parry, who apparently thought it was appropriate to tell Foreign Secretary David Lammy, a man born in London, to go home to the Caribbean. When Reform's Home Affairs spokesman Zia Yusuf was pressed about this on national television by Laura Kuenssberg, asking why it kept happening, Yusuf's response was to attack the BBC. Not to own the problem, not to outline concrete action, to attack the messenger. It was the kind of performance that makes even Reform's sympathisers wince. The cracks in the party's internal structure are also impossible to ignore. Rupert Lowe, one of Reform's original 5 MPs elected in the 2024 general election, was suspended from the party in March 2025 after daring to criticise Farage's leadership. He has since launched his own political vehicle, Restore Britain, which has already attracted defecting Reform councillors. Crucially, Restore Britain has secured the backing of none other than Elon Musk, the same tech billionaire who earlier in 2025 had publicly called for Farage himself to be replaced as party leader. The irony is almost too rich. Farage spent years cultivating his relationship with Musk as proof of his global relevance. Now, Musk is actively funding a rival designed to eat into Reform's voter base from the right. Then there is the equally uncomfortable story of former Reform MP James McMurdoch, who stepped down from the party in July 2025 after admitting to business misconduct. Reform's internal discipline, it turns out, is somewhat more chaotic than the disciplined insurgency Farage likes to project. And what about the councillors who were actually elected and put in charge of local government? Reform won control of 10 councils in the May 2025 local elections. Their campaign literature in places like Kent promised explicitly to cut taxes. Once in office, those same councils raised council tax, many by close to the legal limit. When Farage was confronted directly about the Kent leaflet on ITV, his response was astonishing. He said, and this is a direct recollection, "Well, cutting taxes could mean not putting them up as much, I suppose. That is not politics. That is a masterclass in how to gaslight your own voters." The people of Kent voted for Reform on the explicit promise of lower taxes. What they got were higher taxes dressed up as fiscal responsibility. The Labour MP for Chatham and Aylesford put it plainly. Farage moved on. The consequences were left for the residents. Meanwhile, Reform's support in the polls, while still substantial, has begun to slide. After peaking at around 31% in October 2025, the party had dropped to approximately 27% by March 2026. Still ahead of the field, yes, but the trajectory matters. Every week seems to bring a fresh scandal, a new defection, or another candidate who turns out to have views that belong somewhere between embarrassing and deeply disturbing. And Farage's response to falling poll numbers has been to attack the pollsters, specifically YouGov, accusing them of being deceptive. Experts who actually looked at the data concluded the gap was within the margin of error, but attacking institutions that deliver bad news is very much on brand for a man who has spent 30 years blaming everyone else for Britain's problems, while positioning himself as
Here is the deeper problem that no single scandal can fully capture. Reform was never really a party in the traditional sense. It was a vehicle for Farage's personality, his celebrity, his grievances. When things go wrong, and things are going spectacularly wrong, there is no institutional resilience, no deep bench of trusted lieutenants, no party machine that functions independently of its leader. When your housing spokesman responds to a tragedy like Grenfell by saying, in effect, that everyone dies in the end, and the Prime Minister publicly demands his removal, and cross-party condemnation rains down from every direction, that is not a normal political crisis. That is what happens when vetting is treated as an afterthought, when loyalty to the leader matters more than basic competence or decency. The question is not whether Reform UK is in trouble right now. It clearly is. The question is whether any of this fundamentally changes the political landscape Farage has spent years reshaping. His voters are angry at the political establishment, and scandals within Reform are unlikely to push them back to Labour or the Conservatives. But the emergence of Restore Britain, with its harder-edged positioning and Musk's backing, represents a genuine threat from the flank that Farage thought was his permanent home. The irony of ironies, having spent his career picking off Conservative voters by being more right-wing, more culturally combative, and more willing to say the unsayable, Farage is now facing the same strategy turned against him.
Nigel Farage has survived more political near-death experiences than almost anyone in British public life. Written off after every failed election bid, every party imploding, every controversy, he always came back. Maybe he will again. But this moment feels different, not because any single scandal is fatal, but because all of them together paint a picture of a party that was never ready for the scrutiny that comes with actual power. And the voters who believed the promise of something genuinely different deserve better than cameo videos, broken tax pledges, and Nazi salutes from the team they were told would clean up Britain. That is the story tonight on Britain Unfiltered. If you found this analysis useful, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a breakdown. And drop a comment below. Do you think these scandals will cost Reform UK at the May 2026 local elections, or will Farage's supporters stick with him regardless? Let us know what you think.